You strike your first ugly bead with a $700 machine, and 20 years later, a refinery superintendent is waiting on your call before a shutdown can start. Level 1, the spark chasing beginner. You are usually young here, maybe 18, maybe 28 and starting over, maybe laid off from something else and tired of hearing that trades are good money without anybody telling you what the first 6 months actually feel like. The first thing you buy is not glory. It is a helmet that feels too heavy, gloves that make your hands clumsy, a grinder, chipping hammer, jacket, and whatever machine you can afford or borrow. If you go through a certificate program, you might spend somewhere between $5,000 and $15,000. If you start at a community college or a shop helper job, you may spend less cash and more pride. Your first real lesson is simple. Welding is not just melting metal. It is preparation, fit up, angle, travel speed, heat, cleaning, and not being stupid around electricity, sparks, gas cylinders, and fumes. You think the fun part is the arc. Your instructor or old-timer mentor knows the real test is whether you can shut up, listen, and clean your joint properly before you touch the trigger. The booth smells like hot steel and dust. You pull the helmet down too early, then too late. You either move too fast and leave a skinny little worm of a bead, or too slow and pile up a lumpy mess that looks like burnt oatmeal. Somebody more experienced glances at it and says, "Well, it's attached." That is not praise. At this level, you are learning the basic processes people actually say on the shop floor. Metal inert gas, tungsten inert gas, and stick welding. You learn that every process has its own personality. Metal inert gas feels friendly until your settings are wrong. Stick welding humbles you immediately. Tungsten inert gas makes you realize coordination is a real thing and your hands apparently have never met each other before. If you get hired early, entry pay is often around $16 to $25 an hour depending on region and industry, or roughly $35,000 to $45,000 a year. It sounds decent until you realize you are slow, you are being watched, and the expensive part of the trade is mistakes. Then one day a supervisor hands you a simple piece and says, "Do it again." You do. It is slightly less ugly. That is the first door opening. Level 2. The grinder and broom apprentice. Now you are in a real shop, job site, or apprenticeship, and this is the level people skip when they romanticize welding. You are not the hero with sparks flying. You are the person sweeping the floor, fetching material, beveling edges, changing wire spools, dragging leads, and grinding out somebody else's bad weld because they are too valuable to do it themselves. You believe you are there to weld. The shop believes you are there to become useful. Those are not the same thing. Your day starts before the arc. You check bottles, move stock, clean mill scale, mark cuts, and learn that a good fit-up can make an average welder look decent, and a bad fit-up can make a great welder look cursed. The old welder in the next bay acts annoyed every time you ask a question, but he also quietly fixes your machine settings when you are not looking. That is mentorship in trade language. This is where you learn the humiliations. Welding spatter burns through your sleeve because you got lazy. You flash yourself because you peek. You weld a part backward, you forget to clamp properly and watch the piece pull out of alignment as it cools. You spend 40 minutes making a nice looking bead on the wrong side of the assembly. Congratulations, you have joined the profession. You also learn safety the adult way, which is not a poster on a wall. It is seeing what happens when someone skips ventilation in a confined area. It is realizing your lungs, eyes, and hearing are being charged rent every shift. You get serious about your hood, respirator when required, sleeves, boots, and not treating personal protective equipment like optional decoration. Money improves a little because your value improves a little. Maybe you are now at $19 to $27 an hour. Maybe there is overtime. Maybe there is per diem if you travel. But your real currency here is trust. Can you prep parts without being told twice? Can you read a tape measure? Can you identify porosity, undercut, lack of fusion, and slag inclusion before someone else catches it? Then one day, they stop handing you scrap and start handing you production work that will actually ship. That is the first moment you realize this trade has levels inside levels. Level 3, the certified hand. This is where welding starts becoming a career instead of a vibe. You test. Maybe it is a plate test in a booth, maybe a structural test, maybe pipe, maybe a company qualification first, then a broader credential later. The American Welding Society Certified Welder route is one common badge people chase. And while the test and renewal fees are not crazy by themselves, the real cost is practice time, failed tests, and the pressure of doing under observation what you can usually do alone. You walk into the test booth knowing everybody acts casual and nobody is casual. Coupons are cut, joint is prepped, settings are checked. You strike the arc and suddenly your own breathing sounds too loud. The trick is not magic talent, it is repetition under boring discipline. At this level, you finally understand that a pretty weld is not always a good weld, and an ugly weld is not always a failed weld. But both of those statements get abused by people who want excuses. So you learn code, procedure, and inspection. Bend tests matter. Destructive testing is brutally honest. A bead does not care about your confidence. With a certification and a year or two of decent shop experience, your pay can move into the mid-40s to mid-50s annually, sometimes more in stronger markets. The national median for welders sits around $49,500, but that hides the real spread. A mediocre welder in a low-demand shop can stall. A dependable welder who can pass tests and show up ready can move. Your tools get better too. Better hood, better gloves, better grinder. Maybe your own tungsten sharpener setup if you are doing precision work. Maybe you stop buying the cheapest things because you finally understand that comfort and consistency are not luxury items when your body is your income. The hard lesson here is that certification is a key, not a crown. Plenty of certified welders are still shaky in the field. Plenty of good field welders hate tests. The next step goes to the one who can do both. Then a foreman asks if you want to travel for a shutdown or if you can handle vertical and overhead without drama, and suddenly the road gets wider. Level 4, the production pro. Now you are the person newer people watch. Not because you are legendary, but because your welds are boring in the best possible way. They pass, they hold, they get done on time. You are on structural steel, fabrication, manufacturing lines, repair work, farm equipment, trailers, pressure parts, or whatever your region feeds on. You start reading blueprints without panicking. You stop blaming the machine for everything. You hear the arc and know when something is off. You can tell by the puddle if your heat is wrong, by the sound if your wire feed is drifting, by the smell if something contaminated is burning that should not be. This is also where your back and schedule start sending invoices. You work odd positions, knees on concrete, neck twisted, hood down for hours. Overtime appears during crunches, and the paycheck looks better until you realize you have not eaten dinner with your family in 3 nights. Welding can absolutely pay. It can also eat evenings, shoulders, and marriages if you let every job become an emergency. Typical earnings here can land around $50,000 to $65,000, with overtime pushing it further. You become the person who gets called when a fixture is acting weird, a repair has to happen fast, or a younger welder is about to scrap expensive material. You are no longer paid just for laying metal, you are paid for reducing chaos. And then you notice something important. The highest paid person in the shop is not always the one with the prettiest bead. It is often the person with a hard specialty nobody wants to mess up. Pipe, pressure work, aerospace, exotic alloys, shutdowns, field repairs at terrible hours. That realization pulls you toward the next level. Level 5, the specialist. This is the fork in the road where welding becomes a skill tree. You pick your pain. Maybe you go pipe. Now every bad habit gets exposed. Pipe rewards precision, patience, and body positions that feel designed by a chiropractor's enemy. You crawl around spools, line up roots, and learn that fit up can decide your whole day. A refinery or power plant shutdown is not the place for guesswork. Delays cost serious money, and everybody on site acts like time personally insulted them. Maybe you go tungsten inert gas on stainless steel or aluminum. Now cleanliness becomes religion. Maybe you chase aerospace or food grade work where contamination, warping, and tiny defects matter more than your ego. Maybe you work in energy, defense, or high-spec fabrication where paperwork follows every weld like a shadow. This level pays because the mistakes are expensive. $60,000 to $80,000 is realistic in many specialized lanes, and higher is possible in the right market, especially with travel, overtime, or shutdown work. Some sectors go well beyond that. Underwater welding gets clickbaited constantly, so here is the honest version. Yes, some divers with welding skills can make very high income in dangerous niche work, but that is not the default path, and the risk is real. It is not a casual upgrade pack. Your identity changes here. You stop saying, "I'm a welder," the same vague way. You say what kind. Pipe welder, stainless tungsten inert gas welder, structural field welder, repair specialist. The trade starts sorting itself into tribes with rivalries, pride, and endless debates about who the real welders are. Dry truth. Everybody talks big until their own test coupon cracks. The hard lesson here is that specialization narrows your lane while raising your value. You get paid more because fewer people can do it well, but now your reputation becomes local and sticky. A bad shutdown performance follows you. A great one does too. Then somebody asks if you can lead a small crew because you are the one others already listen to. Level 6, the lead welder. You are still welding, but now the hood comes up more often because other people need answers. The drawing is wrong. Material is late. A new guy is burning through. Inspection flagged a section. The superintendent wants an update. A customer is visiting. You thought the reward for becoming excellent would be peace. Instead, you became the meeting point for everybody else's problems. This level can happen around 5 to 10 years in, sometimes earlier if a shop is desperate and you are solid. You are assigning work, checking joints, verifying procedures, and catching mistakes before they become rework. You might train apprentices. You might sign off on production steps. You might be the one who knows which welder can handle overhead stick work in the field and which one should stay on easier bench fabrication until further notice. Money can range widely here, maybe $65,000 to $90,000, depending on industry, overtime, and whether the title is lead, foreman, or some unofficial version of the person we bother all day. What you really gain is status. The shop owner greets you differently. Inspectors know your name. You are no longer just hands, you are judgment. But management pressure enters the room. You have to balance speed against quality, and that is where character gets tested. Anybody can talk about craftsmanship when the clock is off. It is harder when a delayed shipment is chewing through margin by the hour. You learn that some bosses want miracles, some clients want champagne on a beer budget, and some welders can do amazing work but poison a crew. Leadership in a trade is not motivational speeches. It is putting the right person on the right joint and taking the heat when something goes wrong. Eventually, one of two doors opens. You go deeper into technical authority, inspection, procedures, and supervision, or you go independent and bet that your skill can survive invoices, taxes, and customers. Level 7, the inspector or supervisor. Here, the trade gets weird for outsiders because your hands may be doing less welding while your knowledge becomes more valuable than ever. Maybe you pursue additional credentials, such as welding inspector rotes or supervisory certifications. Those take study, fees, and a different kind of maturity. You are no longer just proving you can make the weld. You are proving you can judge whether it should exist at all. Your scene now is a clipboard, tablet, flashlight, gauges, procedure sheets, and a crew waiting while you look at a joint for 6 extra seconds that feel like a full minute to everyone else. You read weld symbols, verify preheat requirements, track filler materials, and have unpleasant conversations when things do not match code. Nobody loves the person who stops production, but everybody remembers the person who prevented a failure. Income here can move into strong territory, often from around $70,000 upward, sometimes well above $100,000 in major industries or high responsibility sectors. You are dealing in trust, liability, and consequences now. A bad call can cost a contract. A good call can save a shutdown, a vessel, or someone's life. The hard part is emotional. You miss the simplicity of just striking an arc and letting the puddle answer everything. Now people argue. Paper matters, documentation matters, procedure matters. You find yourself defending quality to managers and defending schedule to welders, which means both sides occasionally think you sold out, and still another itch appears. You see what the shop charges for your labor compared to what you take home. You see mobile rigs billing emergency repair at rates that make your hourly wage look small. You start wondering whether the next level is ownership. Level 8, the rig, the shop, the name on the invoice. This is the endgame most people imagine and underestimate. You buy the truck, or lease the small bay, or both. You hang your own sign. Maybe you focus on mobile repair, farm and heavy equipment, structural installs, stainless food equipment, custom fabrication, railings, trailer repair, shutdown support, or a specialty lane you know cold. Your first week as an owner is not cinematic. It is insurance calls, consumable orders, bookkeeping confusion, permit questions, customers asking for miracles by Friday, and the sinking realization that being a great welder does not automatically make you a profitable operator. A single decent machine may cost a few $1,000s. A serious setup, plus gas, leads, tools, saws, tables, ventilation, truck outfitting, and safety gear adds up fast. You are carrying overhead now, not just a hood. But if you survive the first ugly year, the money ceiling changes. Not guaranteed riches, not internet fantasy, just a bigger range. A one-person mobile welder may do modest but respectable business. A strong specialty operator with repeat commercial clients can clear well into 6 figures. A small fabrication shop with a few employees and reliable contracts can scale much higher, but now your problems include payroll, callbacks, estimating, and whether your best welder just got poached by a competitor. Status changes too. The same people who used to look past you now ask for your schedule. General contractors want certificates, insurance, references, and turnaround time. Your weld is now attached to your company name. If it fails, your phone rings, not your foreman's, and this is where the opening image comes back. You once stared at a cheap machine and hoped your bead would hold. Now maybe you have multiple rigs, a crew, and clients who wait for your answer before work can continue. The spread is real. So is the cost. Your shoulders are older. Your hearing is not what it was. You missed dinners, chased shutdowns, ate bad gas station food at midnight, and spent years turning embarrassment into competence. The final lesson of welding is brutal and clean. The trade does not care about image. It rewards useful people. If you keep becoming more useful, from broom to booth to test to field to specialty to leadership to ownership, the ladder is absolutely there. But every rung has heat on it.